So, I'm going to pour myself a glass of water. Nice and cosy. Got my PJs on, got my hot Vimto. Up with the book. Thank you very much, Super Vigilante. Chapter 3. The Black Spot. About noon, I stopped at the captain's door with some cooling drinks and medicines. He was lying very much as we had left him, only a little higher. What's he doing? Smoking a doob. And he seemed both weak and excited.
Jim,
he said,
you're the only one here that's worth anything. And you know I've always been good to you. Never a month but I've given you a silver fourpenny to yourself.
4p a month. Tight bastard.
And now you see, mate, I'm pretty low and deserted by all. And Jim, you'd bring me one noggin of rum now, won't you, matey?
A noggin of rum. Can I have a rum, please? Yeah, do you want a single or a double? Can I have a noggin? I'll give you a biff in the noggin if you keep asking for noggins of drink.
Bring me a noggin of rum now, won't you, matey?
The doctor, I began, but he broke in, cursing the doctor in a feeble voice, but heartily. More contrary.
Doctors are feeble, but hurry. Doctors is all swabs, he said. And that doctor there, why, what do he know about seafaring men? I been in places hard as pitch, and mates dropping round with yellow jack. The yellow fever that he's talking about, probably. And the blessed land heaving like the sea with earthquakes.
I think that's to suggest he's been to the tropics. Earthquakes he's seen. He saw an earthquake. No one would have been abroad in them days. Unless they were a seafaring man.
What did the doctor know of lands like that? And I lived on rum, I tell you. It's been meat and drink and man and wife to me. And if I'm not to have my rum now, I'm a poor old hulk on a lee shore. My blood'll be on you, Jim, and that doctor swab.
And he ran on again for a while with curses.
That fucking doctor.
Yeah, I've got you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Jim, that fucking doctor.
Yeah, all right.
Look, Jim, how my finger fidges, he continued in the pleading tone,
fidgeting his fingers like that.
Look, Jim, my finger's fidgeting.
What does fidgeting mean?
Don't, never mind that. Oh, my finger, he continued in the pleading tone. I can't keep him still, not I. Not I. Somebody else might be able to, but not I. I haven't had a drop this blessed day. That doctor's a fool, I tell you. If I don't have a drain of rum, Jim, I'll have the horrors. The horrors.
That is a great phrase for just trauma.
He's got the horrors.
Oh, what's wrong with him?
He's got the horrors. How I got the horrors? I've seen some of them already. I seen old Flint in the corner there behind you, as plain as print. I seen him, and if I get the horrors, I'm a man that's lived rough, and I'll raise Cain. Your doctor himself, rise Cain, he means, like, oh, fucking trouble for you, he's saying. I'll raise Cain. Your doctor himself said one glass wouldn't hurt me. I'll give you a golden guinea for a noggin, Jim.
He was growing more and more excited, and this alarmed me for my father, who was very low that day and needed quiet. His dad's ill, bless him, Jim Hawkins. His dad's really poorly in the next room. That's why Jim Hawkins is running the pub, because his mum's in the other room, looking after his dad, and his dad's in bed poorly. Besides, I was reassured by the doctor's words, now quoted to me, and rather offended by the offer of a bribe. I don't need no money to go and get you a noggin of rum. I want none of your money, said I, but what you owe my father. I'll get you 1 glass and no more. When I brought it to him, he seized it greedily and drank it out.
Give me that.
Remember as well, it said in the previous chapter he drinks it like a connoisseur by swishing it around his mouth, so he's like that.
Give me that.
Goes on like that for a while.
Aye, said he. That's some better, sure enough. And now, matey, did that doctor say how long I was to lie here in this old berth?
A week at least, said I.
Thunder!
He cried.
A week? I can't do that. They'll have the black spot on me by then. The lubbers is gonna bite to get the wind of me.
It's all talking like a pirate.
The lubbers is gonna bite to get the wind of me this blessed moment. Lubbers is couldn't keep what they got and want to nail what is another's.
You don't make it easy for you.
Is that seemly behaviour now? Is it? Is that seemly behaviour now? I want to know. But I'm a saving soul. I never wasted good money of mine. Nor lost it neither. And I'll trick him again. I'm not afraid on him. I'll shake out another reef, matey, and daddle him again.
He's losing it now. The captain, Billy Bones. And as he was thus speaking, he had risen from bed with great difficulty, holding to my shoulder with a grip that almost made me cry out, and moving his legs like so much dead weight. His words, spirited as they were in meaning, contrasted sadly with the weakness of the voice in which they were uttered. Oh, he's been weak this whole while.
Oh, down, Jim. Oh, no.
He paused when he had got into a sitting position on the edge.
That doctor's done me,
he murmured.
That doctor's done me,
he murmured.
My ears are singing. Leave me back.
Before I could do much to help him, he had fallen back again in his former place, where he lay for a while silent.
Jim,
he said at length,
you saw that seafaring man today?
Black dog? I asked.
Ah, black dog, says he.
That's me going, his voice now,
says he. He's a bad un.
Strong words. They don't mince their words, these pirates. He's a bad un.
He's a bad un, but there's worse that put him on. Now, if I can't get away nohow, and they tip me the black spot, mind you, it's my old sea chest they're after. You get on a horse. You can, can't you? Well, then you get on a horse and go to... Well, yes, I will. To that... What's happening now? Well, yes, I will. To that eternal doctor swab, and tell him to pay Paul hands, magistrates and such.
And he wants to avail himself of the law of the land now. He's been walking around with a cutlass, threatening people if they don't join in with his songs. But now he wants to involve the community support. He's not going to get it if I've got anything to do with it. I haven't.
Tell him to pay Paul hands, magistrates and such, and he'll lay him aboard at the Admiral Benbow. All old Flint's crew, man and boy, all on him that's left. I was first mate, I was. Old Flint's first mate. And I'm the only one as knows the place. He gave it me at Savannah, when he lay a-dying. Like as if I was too now, you see. But you won't peach, unless they get the black spot on me. Or unless you see that black dog again, or a seafaring man with one leg, Jim. Him above all.
But what is the black spot, Captain? I asked.
That's a summons, mate. I'll tell you if they get that. But you keep your weather eye open, Jim, and I'll share with you equals upon my honour.
He wondered a little longer, his voice growing weaker, but soon, after I'd given him his medicine, which he took like a child, with the remark, "If ever a seaman wanted drugs, it's me." He's having a laugh now. He's got a bit of a sense of humour about his condition, really. I think we've been quite hard on Billy Bones so far. He seems like a man who's He's seen a lot. He's had his mates with yellow fever, so he says. He's been to places with earthquakes, which can't have been easy for a man as pissed up as him all the while. Know what I mean? They're wobbling about all over the place. My Vimto's gone lukewarm. If ever a seaman wanted drugs, it's probably me. You know what I mean, Jim? You're laughing with him now. I think if anybody needed drugs, that's me, Jim. Oh, you know the game. He fell at last into a heavy swoon-like sleep, in which I left him. What I should have done had all gone well, I do not know. Probably I should have told the whole story to the doctor, for I was in mortal fear lest the captain should repent of his confessions and make an end of me. But as things fell out, my poor father died quite suddenly that evening. That is a shame. That is a shame. Which put all other matters on one side. Our natural distress, the visits of the neighbours, the arranging of the funeral, and all the work of the inn to be carried on in the meanwhile. Oh yeah, poor bastard Jim. His Almonds popped his clogs, and he's got to run the pub still. They're like that. Oh, come in. He was a good man. He was a good man. I know, he was a good man. He was quite easily stressed, wasn't he? He was quite easily stressed. It didn't help having Billy Bones here, no. He was a bit of a handful for him. It was a bit of a handful for him, wasn't he? Listen, you look after yourself. Where's your little lad? Oh, I don't know. He's like that behind the bar. What do you want, a Guinness? Yeah, that's, how much is a Guinness in 1769? That's halfpenny. That'll be halfpenny. I ain't got the money on me now at the moment, Jim. They're trying it on because he's like 6. I ain't got the money on me. Okay. Well, can you pay me? What are you going to do about it? My dad's just... Come on. That'd be halfpenny, please. His mum's like that at the door. It is hard running the pub, yeah. I'm going for another lie down upstairs. What's happened to that pirate who lives in your pub? The what? The mad fella who keeps singing sea shanties, who carries a cutlass and a telescope around, and he's covered in patches and he stinks and he's always drinking rum. You think that means he's a pirate? I mean, that's not been specifically said yet, but I would hedge my bets. I'm too busy running this pub. I've got to go and have a lie down. Jim, clean the floor when you finished at the bar. Jim's cleaning the floor now, and people are just helping themselves behind the bar. Billy Bones definitely insisted on giving the eulogy, says Bauble Rob. Yeah, Billy Bones is wheeled out on his bed at the funeral. How long a period of time is this? Like a few days, I assume. When Billy Bones is lying there. Yeah, Billy Bones is definitely. They're all like at the church and like, Mr. Hawkins was a good man. He lived a straightforward life, running a pub on a cliff, where frequently cutlass-bearing men would fight, and he managed to stress out not that much about it, enough that it eventually killed him. But here to say a few kind words is the captain. I don't know why I was clapping. You're not clapping over your eye. On a gurney. 15 men on it. Oh no, everyone's looking down like that. But he makes them join in. And if people don't join in, he gets really riled up. That would be a really horrible funeral, actually. And I've been to some horrible funerals. You can't beat a good one, what am I talking about? Anyway. We've got away from ourselves. This is your fault, Bobble Rob. So his poor old dad's copped it. And we got the funeral to arrange, everything, the inn carrying on. He's very busy, little Jim. He got downstairs next morning, to be sure. Next morning? This has only been a day? So in a day, his Elmond's popped his clogs, been buried, they've had the party, he's carried on doing the inn, but it's been one day. People moved at a different pace. People say like, oh, it was a slower pace of life in the old days. It was more, it was more easy going. But look how much they used to get done in a day. That's why Britain ruled the waves. Just inhuman levels of productivity and caring about no one, and everyone living to about 35. He got downstairs next morning, to be sure, and had his meals as usual, though he ate little, and had more, I am afraid, than his usual supply of rum. I think we all saw that coming. For he helped himself out of the bar. See what I mean? It's a free-for-all now. The landlord's dead. Because his wife's not helping. Poor little Jim. Helped himself out of the bar, scowling and blowing through his nose. Another of his weird habits that he keeps doing. Helping himself out the pump. There is a pump of rum. He did say there was a pump of rum. And no one dared to cross him. Well, you wouldn't, would you? On the night before the funeral. Oh, no, we're not at the funeral yet. Oh, let's just forget about the funeral. I've put myself in this position. The night before the funeral, he was as drunk as ever. That's a shame. I think it's all right after, but not before. And it was shocking in that house of mourning to hear him singing away at his ugly old sea song. It is horrible, actually. It's a really horrible scene he's painted here. They're all like that. Bang, ching, chong, ching, dong, chong, blang. Downstairs. Oh, God. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Yo ho ho and a bottle of... Will you shut up? Yo ho ho. It's like having smooth radio on all day. It's the case in my house at the moment. Smooth radio, day in, day out. To hear him singing away his ugly old sea song, 15 Men in a Dead Man's Chest. But weak as he was, we were all in the fear of death for him. And the doctor was suddenly taken up with the case many miles away and was never near the house after my father's death. I have said the captain was weak, and indeed he seemed to grow weaker than regain his strength. He clambered up and downstairs and went from the parlour to the bar and back again, and sometimes put his nose out of doors to smell the sea, holding on to the walls as he went for support, and breathing hard and fast through his nose, no doubt, like a man on a steep mountain. He never particularly addressed me, but it's my belief he had as good as forgotten his confidences, but his temper was more flighty, and allowing for his bodily weakness, more violent than ever. He had an alarming way now, when he was drunk, of drawing his cutlass, shling, and laying it bare before him on the table. But with all that, he minded people less, and seemed shut up in his own thoughts, and rather wandering. Once, for instance, to our extreme wonder, he piped up to a different air, a kind of country love song that he must have learned in his youth, before he had begun to follow the sea. What do we think that was? A country love song. I think it was Shania Twain. I think it was almost certainly Shania Twain from before he went to sea. He's like that in the shlink, bong, with his rum. You're still the one I want. Oh, the only one I need. Oh, you're still the one I kiss. Good night. Like that, everyone's like, oh, maybe he's not that bad. So things passed until the day after the funeral. So this is basically all over the course of a day. And about 3 o'clock of a bitter, foggy, frosty afternoon, I was standing at the door for a moment, full of sad thoughts about my father. I should think so, Jim. You've barely let yourself breathe, and it's very important to do that when you grieve. When I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road. He was plainly blind. Judgmental, Jim. For he tapped before him with a stick, fair enough, and wore a great green shade over his eyes and nose. And he was hunched. That's got nothing to do with it. As if with age or weakness. Yep. And wore a huge old tattered sea cloak with a hood that made him appear positively deformed. I never saw in my life a more dreadful looking figure. I don't like Jim's attitude towards this man. Just because he can't afford a good cloak and is blind. He basically thinks he's a monster. He stopped a little from the inn, and raising his voice in an odd sing-song, addressed the air in front of him. Now, in the 1950 Disney film, right? This is a good piece of trivia. This character is played by John Laurie, who played Private Fraser in Dad's Army. So there's a little bit of trivia. Like 20 years before Dad's Army, when he was still a young-ish man and not an old, like, we're doomed. But obviously because of that, we are going to have to do basically his Private Fraser's voice for this character. Will any kind friend inform a poor blind man who has lost the precious sight of his eyes in the gracious defence of his native country, England? Well, it's ruined it now. Well, we'll pretend he's one of them who's like, England. He's really like, do you know what I mean? A bit too pro-union, if you know what I mean. Will any kind friend inform a poor blind man who's lost the precious sight of his eyes in the gracious defence of his native country, England, and God bless King George, covering his back, where or in what part of this country he may be now? You're at the Admiral Benbow, Black Hill Cove, my good man, said I. I hear a voice, said he, a young voice, so we're doomed. Will you give me your hand, my kind young friend, and lead me in? I held out my hand, and the horrible, soft-spoken, eyeless creature, I don't like this, gripped it in a moment, like a vice. I was so much startled that I struggled to withdraw, but the blind man pulled me close up to him with a single action of his arm. Now, boy, he said, take me in to the captain. He knows what he's tricked him. Sir, said I, upon my word I dare not. Oh, we're doomed, he sneered. That's it. Take me in straight, and I'll break your arm. And he gave it, as he spoke, a wrench that made me cry out. Has! Oh! Hey! One of my favourite things is a noise of alarm or pain that isn't like a normal, like, ow! Or like, oh! But it's like, oh! Has! Has! Like that on his arm. Has! Sir, said I, it is for yourself, I mean. The captain is not what he used to be. He sits with drawn cutlass. Another gentleman... Come now. March! Captain Mannering, interrupted he. And I never heard a voice so cruel and cold and ugly as that blind man's. Do you know what I mean about the language here? I'm not a fan of, really. I mean, obviously he's a baddie, but that's nothing to do with the fact that he's blind. It's like those people who are you ever watch that program where they like dug Richard III up, and loads of the people who were like, Richard III was a good man, which is completely possible, were like, but he can't have had a hunchback. A hunchback? He can't have had a hunchback. He was a lovely man. Oh, because a symptom of evil is scoliosis. That's like a few years ago that people were saying that. It really wound me up. Basically just because they all fancied him. They're like, oh, do you know what I mean? It was horrible. Anyway, Jim is obviously the hero of this story, but I'm not a fan of the way he's talking about this fella. It cowed me, his horrible voice, his horrible, gross, blind voice, Jim says. It cowed me more than the pain, and I began to obey him at once, walking straight in at the door and towards the parlour, where our sick old buccaneer was sitting, dazed with rum. The blind man clung close to me, holding me in one iron fist. These are different times as well. We should say that. These are different times. 19th century this is written. We don't use these terms now. The blind man. We don't do that. The blind man clung close to me, holding me in one iron fist and leaning almost more of his weight on me than I could carry. Lead me straight up to him, and when I'm in view, cry out, here's a friend for ye, Bill. If you don't, I'll do this. And with that, he gave me a twitch that I thought would have made me faint, so he's like that on his arm again. Oh! Like that, really sharp like that. So he is horrible, this fella. He's like a kid, this guy. Between this and that, I was so utterly terrified of the blind beggar, problematic language this, that I forgot my terror of the captain, and as I opened the parlour door, cried out the words he had ordered in a trembling voice. The poor captain raised his eyes, and at one look, the rum went out of him and left him staring sober. He's it. Like that. The expression of his face was not so much of terror as of mortal sickness. He made a movement to rise, but I do not believe he had enough force left in his body. "Now, Bill," I said, "where you are?" said the beggar. If I can't see, I can hear a finger stirring. Business is business, we're doomed. Hold out your left hand. Boy, take his left hand by the wrist and bring it near to my right. We both obeyed him to the letter, and I saw him pass something from the hollow of the hand that held his stick into the palm of the captain's, which closed upon it instantly. "And now that's done, we're doomed," said the blind man. And at the words, he suddenly left hold of me, and with incredible accuracy and nimbleness, skipped out of the parlour. It's a bit weird, isn't it? And into the road, where, as I still stood motionless, I could hear his stick go tap, tap, tapping into the distance. It was some time before either I or the captain seemed to gather our senses, but at length, and about at the same moment, I released his wrist, which I was still holding, and he drew in his hand. And he drew in his hand, he didn't draw in his hand. Look, he's drawn like an eye, a Hamza. He drew in his hand and looked sharply into the palm. 10 o'clock! Oh, it's Billy Benbow. That was just me then. 10 o'clock! Oh, 10 o'clock! 10 o'clock! He cried. 6 hours! We'll do 'em yet! And he sprang to his feet. Even as he did so, he reeled. Ooh! I assume when you say reeled, he was like, ooh! He didn't just start reeling like the dance. Oh, I made a fool of myself because that's a hornpipe, not a reel. He reeled, put his hand to his throat, oh jeez, and swayed for a moment, and then with a peculiar sound, that could be anything. Or no, maybe it's more like the huss sound. Huss. Fell from his whole height, face foremost, to the floor. That is painful, actually. Face planked. Face plant. I ran to him at once, calling to my mother. Mum! She don't care. She's done. Well, no, that's not fair. She's had a lot on her plate. But haste was all in vain. The captain had been struck dead. He's dead. Now. He is dead. He had been struck dead by thundering apoplexy. 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 It is a curious thing to understand, for I'd certainly never liked the man, though of late I had begun to pity him. But as soon as I saw that he was dead, I burst into a flood of tears. It was the second death I had known, and the sorrow of the first was still fresh in my heart. End of chapter. Well, bad news, lads. Giving us all pause for thought there. Billy Bones, even though he was horrible, and he was horrible, let's be honest, little Jim is gutted when he dies, and that is terrible, actually. He's obviously stored up a lot of grief, and he's been making him, keep working in the pub, keep serving him rum and all that, and his death has been a sort of a catharsis for Jim's grief. for his father. Bless his little heart. Jim's, not the captain's. Billy Bones, let's call him by his name. Billy Bones is dead of a thundering apoplexy. That's the upshot there. So, to recap, Billy Bones, he's getting drunker and drunker, he's suffering. He's obviously very traumatised. And this new fella, this blind fella, has turned up, given him something in his hand, and he's gone,
"Oh God, we've got till tonight. We've got till tonight. They're coming at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock on the dot. 10 o'clock, they'll be here."
Who's they? Who's coming at 10 o'clock? Join me tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Which is quite handy. I hadn't even thought of that. That's just a lovely coincidence. Join me tomorrow at 10 o'clock to find out. Thank you very much for joining in for chapter 3. I think I've successfully recorded this one, so I'll pop that up, pop it up on YouTube. And tomorrow we'll carry on with the story. Any questions? Any questions?